Well, let's delve into talking more on the security situation in the country, and we're looking at the last 8 years. We're joined by a former spokesperson of the Nigerian Army, Brigadier General Sani Usman. Welcome to the news at 10.
Thank you very much for having me on your program.
Before President Muhammadu Buhari assumed office 8 years ago, there were a lot of expectations that given his military background, security should be well handled. Do you think that expectation was met or has been met?
Well, assessing 8 years in terms of security within a short period of time actually is a tall order. However, if you look at it from the perspective of what was happening earlier before he took over office, talking about 2014, 2015, when, the Boko Haram terrorists held sway. And what is happening now, I think you have to give him pass mark in respect of that. However, of course, security challenges are very fluid and dynamic. People would like to mention other issues like the insurgents, banditry and kidnappings and so on. But if we take Boko Haram, for instance, in perspective, if you look at it, the number of attacks have drastically dropped, and in fact we have not been hearing of suicide bombing. The last one, before it was even activated, the security forces were able to nip it in the bud in Kaduna. So when you look at that perspective, definitely you will give him a pass mark, or the government the pass mark. Remember again, 15 local governments were under the Boko Haram terrorists. Today there is none of it, and the fact that yesterday people in Borno State that I spoke with, they were saying that as far as much they are concerned, insurgency is no more and all the rest of the thing. But that notwithstanding, I know for sure there are still room for improvement if you look at the other perspective. And that will look at other aspects that we need to look at. For instance, security is a kind of collective responsibility. There is no way that you can be dealing with security challenges that bordered on terrorism and insurgency, kidnapping, banditry, ethno-religious conflicts, herders, farmers, without truly involving the people. Therefore, the issue of whole society approach need to be revisited. And of course, there are other issues that had to do with, empowering the security agencies themselves more. Take, for instance, the policing system, and of course, equipment and use of technology, as it were, as compared to what, has been happening. And of course, time keep on evolving, so technology keep on evolving, and so the criminal elements. Take, for instance, there are issues of cyber crime and so many other things that really affect the security landscape in this country. But by and large, if you look at, particularly, I have to look at the contribution of the security agencies, particularly the armed forces, under the leadership of the Chief of Defense Staff, their contributions, be it the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy. And you look at even the maritime security, the marvelous effort the Navy has done, and of course the continuous, sorties by the Air Force, definitely is something that you have to give them kudos.
So, Brigadier General,
so,
you have mentioned
the number of. Yeah.
I was going to say that you have mentioned, a lot of things, and you said he should be given a pass mark. You've talked about perhaps the pass mark in terms of the insurgency in the Northeast, and yes, that's also been recorded as one of the achievements. But do you think it met the expectations of the ordinary Nigerians? Because we're looking at other areas where things got bad, such as abductions. We remember the Chibok girls, not all of them are back. Kidnappings also increased. There were several explosions. We kept hearing Taraba State, and of course other abductions.
Well, I was actually coming to that, and that was why I talked about security being collective responsibility. Remember, we have 3 tiers of government, one of which is not working optimally, the local government system, which could have been dealing with some of these security challenges. Now, the only 2 tiers of government that are effectively working, the federal and state government. And to what extent have we, synchronized the relationship in terms of security, dealing with security challenges among the 3 tiers of government and the components of the Nigerian society? I remember it is the issue of being proactive, not being reactive to some of these issues. And that is what I'm coming to. Therefore, the involvement of the people in dealing with security challenges in this country is very, very important. And that is why it is not just enough we are talking about physical security and all the rest, because the definition of security, is beyond the state-centric. An average person who is hungry, definitely he's insecure. You don't expect much from him or her, as the case may be. So we have to create more enabling environment to make Nigerians more secure, not necessarily physical security, but it's equally important, but other things. We have the youth bulge, and we have the unemployment, and of course we have economic problems. To a large extent, this contribute more to the security challenges that we're having. And unless we deal with such issues, definitely we will still be going back to that issue. Take, for instance, the issue of insurgency and terrorism. If you look at it, how did Boko Haram started? They were against corrupt practices and so on and so forth. Have those practices been stopped? That is the question. And what mechanisms are we putting in place?
I want to quickly ask about...
After the train...
I do beg your pardon. I want to quickly ask about the farmer herders crisis. If you think that this administration confronted the issue head on.
Well, that is a very contentious issue. Remember, again, there is no way the federal government can solve that security challenge without, what do you call it, active support from the state government. Take, for instance, what happened, the give and take and all the rest, back and forth between Benue state government and the federal government and some other states. And of course, the government come out with a solution. Take, for instance, the ranching system. But of course, normally things tend to be associated with security. They are always politicized in this country. And to a large extent, that impact negatively on the issue of security in this country. And unless we contribute our bit, regardless of, party affiliation or ethno-religious coloration, let us be on the same page in terms of security issues. We will continue to be going, in the vicious cycle, as it were. So, issue of security should be, seen collectively by every Nigerian, and the issue of citizenship and national orientation has to also come into play so that Nigerians will understand that anything that happens in any of the states has corresponding effect on some of the states, because we are bound together economically and socially.
You have listed a number of issues, but we'd like to appreciate your time to talking to us, giving us your insights and perspective into this very important issue. Former spokesperson of the Nigerian Army, Brigadier General Sani Usman, thank you for joining us on the news at 10 tonight.
Thank you so much.